Okay, let's call this meeting to order and stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Honorable Mayor Ron Shaver,
Here.
Councilmember Dave Fowler,
Here.
Doug Shasso,
Here.
Allison Howe,
Here.
Clint Anderson,
Here.
Lisa Northrup,
Here.
Kevin Lindell.
Present. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the June 18th, 2019 council meeting. Mr. Brennan?
Thank you, Your Honor. A draft copy of the June 18th minutes was provided in your packets and is presented for your approval by resolution.
Has everybody reviewed the minutes, and are there any comments or corrections?
They look good.
Seeing none, I would entertain a resolution.
Your Honor, I have a resolution to accept the June 18th, 2019 regular city council meeting minutes. Second.
I have a resolution by Allison Howe and a second by Lisa Northrup. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
Next is Business of the Month award winner for July. Sarah.
Okay. Hi. So this month, I would like to recognize a really unique business here in our community that first opened their doors in December of 2018. While they are fairly new to our business community, their innovative spirit and collaborative mindset are pillars to what I believe builds a really strong business. For the month of July, I would like to recognize Rebel Girl Collectibles. Their business is located on 216 State Street in Fort Morgan. They're open Wednesday through Friday from 10 to 5 p.m. and Saturdays 10 to 3 p.m. They work with 30 different vendors throughout Morgan County and Colorado, which provide really quality pieces that make up their inventory found at their store. They also offer classes and can host your next event, such as birthdays, girls' night out, whatever you'd like. They are indeed a really unique business here in the city of Fort Morgan, and we're happy to have them be a part of our local business community. Also, be sure to check them out at Bobstock this year on Saturday, July 13th from 9 to 6 p.m. They're going to have about 18 vendors participating for the first ever vintage market. So that's really exciting. And for here to accept the award is Paula, the owner.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you. She's going to take a photo of you.
Thank you guys so very much.
Thank you.
This is exciting for our store. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. I know. Thank you.
Okay, next is council acting as a local licensing authority. This will be a presentation and possible action on approval of a special events permit for the Beer Garden on Main Street during the Bobstock Music Festival. Mr. Brennan.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is the first application we've received since the passage of Ordinance 1232, which became effective June 25th. That ordinance gave the council discretion to approve special event liquor license permits on public property where they had previously only been allowed on private property. This first application is for the beer garden that's in connection with Bobstock. It will still be run by the Elks Lodge, which is a nonprofit and a fraternal. It qualifies on several levels to hold the special event permit. And because of security concerns in the area between the Elks Lodge and the back of the band shell, moving bands back and forth, and between the Elks Lodge and the stage, there was a request to move the beer garden out to Main Street. And so they have provided the normal application for the special event application, and there's a map included with it which shows it roughly, I guess, a little bit south of Cables. It will be in the middle of Main Street, but there will be 13-foot wide walkway between the sidewalk and the fencing. It'll all be completely fenced in, only one entry and exit point, 2 different serving areas, and a canopy covering part of the beer garden. So we posted notice of this application for the special event permit on Main Street on the lawn area in front of the library, basically adjacent to where this will be located, on June 21st, and that posting has remained there till today. We've had no public comments or calls or written comments since that posting. So basically, we're asking the council to make the decision. Normally, the city clerk's office has administrative approval over such permits, but going forward under this new ordinance, whenever it's a request to have it on public property, we'll be bringing these to you.
Okay, are there any questions or comments on the special event permit?
I had a quick question. So, because you know I'm map challenged. So is this going from like Kiowa in front of Cables? Is it going from Kiowa towards Platte?
It's south, it's not at any intersection. It's the northern end of it, it will be just almost even with the Cables awning, the south end of that.
But going, so it'll be going towards then
South.
Toward the
to the south, so in
Towards
like more by where the family center's at? Or am I?
Towards the pawn shop. I
Okay.
guess.
Silver and Gold Pawn
Okay.
Shop, so it'll be in between that
Yeah,
area.
I know we have the north and south on here, but, you know, geographically challenged. The second question I had is, this is more generic for future events. So since council will be approving these, if we have an issue at a special event, that'll somehow be documented so that when those come back around the next year, kind of like right now, we see them when they've been a problem because the liquor license, or maybe they were caught up in a sting or something, but
Right.
if we have issues, that'll come back to us next year, or we'll document that somewhere, or we have thought that far.
That's not been the practice with special event permits. You know, if there's an issue, I assume you mean a violation of some kind or a
Right.
police issue. I'm sure if that happened, we could get, you know, ask the police department to give us documentation of that if it were to happen, put it in the file for the following year, because most of these are kind of recurring things.
Right, because I don't imagine we're going to have somebody out there from the state liquor licensing authority, like where they come around to the businesses. I mean, it could happen,
Right.
obviously.
Yeah, we're not, but they
just,
could.
I was just trying to, somebody had asked me how we would be looking at it if there was a problem during the event. Is there a mechanism in place? So-
Yeah, there's usually a pretty good police presence at Bobstock, and I'm sure they'll be checking that everything is on the up and up there.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I would entertain a resolution.
Your Honor, I would offer a resolution on approval of a special events permit for a beer garden on Main Street during Bobstock Music Festival.
Second.
I have a resolution by Lisa Northrup and a second by Kevin Lindell. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
Blazing trails.
Okay,
So-
before I get to the next item, do you have the paperwork for the public hearing? I don't have that.
Oh, the script?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
before,
we don't.
before we move on to the next item
Okay.
as well, Your Honor, with regard to that beer garden, one of the things that was just recently brought up to our attention, just so that council's aware of it, in the special event permit or request, we go through and get all the in-kinds and everything, and that was all approved by council. One of the recent requests that was made is whether or not we could, we'll be on Main Street on Thursday Night Live, sorry, we'll be closing down Main Street like we normally do. One of the requests was if we could go ahead and close down Main Street at Kiowa instead of on Beaver and get that tent set up on Thursday night so it's there Friday, because Bob Stock starts, I think, sometime in the morning on Friday and then goes through Saturday night. So the request was to be able to shut down the street earlier. And so just to give you a heads up, we're going to work with Streets Department and figure out what that's going to look like and what we need to do.
So they just want to leave it closed off from Kiowa or from
Yeah.
Kiowa?
Do we have a Thursday, we don't have a Thursday night live that week, do we?
Oh, no, we don't. That's right. Oh, we do. Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Never mind, we do.
Actually, we're looking to close the 400 block
The 400 block.
and Beaver. We always have Beaver closed and we set up a tent. That company's coming to set up the beer garden tent as well. We'll get charged double for delivery if they don't do it on the same day. It's not a huge deal, but they close at like 8 or 8:30 that night and open it at 7 o'clock, or close it again at 7 o'clock the next morning, so.
So we would just not
just
open
leave-
it at 8 o'clock?
Yeah, that's right.
On
We just leave
Thursday
it
night,
closed
just
all
leave
night.
it closed?
Yeah.
Seems to make sense to me.
So. Great. Just for your information, we're going to work with the Streets Department to make that
Okay.
happen. So,
So that'll be Friday morning, they'll come set all that up?
Actually, they'll be here on Thursday.
so Thursday afternoon, they'll close Beaver, set up the first one, and then when we close down for the Thursday Night Live, we'll close it off at that point, and then they'll set up the tent there between Kiowa and Beaver.
Shouldn't disrupt the Friday or Thursday night live.
Except you'll have people there saying, so do you have beer yet?
The line will start.
It is not that special event yet.
Where do you go to Cables?
Yeah, we're creating a buzz, if you will, about what's going on down there. Anyways, it'll be fun.
I guess we already voted on it, so.
Yeah, you did. I just wanted to, just for your information, if there were any questions as to why we did something just a little bit different, that's why. And I appreciate Wayne bringing that to my attention this afternoon. And we're going to work with Streets Department, try and get it to
Thanks.
work out. But Bob Stock's going to be a big deal this year. It's going to be fun.
Wayne is the only way I get my family to come visit me, is Bob Stock, so, thank you. They're way into Mark McGrath,
Thanks, Wayne.
so.
Okay.
They're actually not in order. This one is ordinance 1233, so it's probably the last one.
That's what I was looking for, so. They were in order, they were just backwards. Thanks, John.
I knew Jeff could talk long enough to let me do that.
I'm here for you, John.
Always got your back.
Okay, now that John has me squared away, the next item on the agenda is a second reading of a public hearing and possible and final action on ordinance number 1233. And imposing a temporary moratorium on residential apartment or the submission and acceptance, proposing an approval of applications and requests for a permit, license, land use approval, or other approvals for new residential development in a defined portion of a B1 zoning district in downtown area. This is a public hearing, so please keep public comments to the issues before the city council. Each speaker is asked to limit comment time to 3 minutes unless the speaker represents a group of citizens, in which event additional time may be allocated. Please respect these limitations. I reserve the right to limit public comment that is inappropriate under these guidelines and otherwise improper. I also reserve the right to limit testimony or questioning that is repetitive, cumulative, argumentative, or not pertinent to the issues, and to set a time limit on the duration of testimony if I determine it is to be necessary in light of the number of persons who have signed up to testify. First is the legal notice. Mr. Brennan, was it properly noticed?
Yes, Your Honor, a legal notice of this public hearing appeared in the Fort Morgan Times on June 20th.
Presentation of the ordinance. Mr. Wells.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is an ordinance that has come before council already once before, but the purpose of the ordinance is to set a moratorium and specifically in a specific boundary in the downtown area to prevent any further development of housing in order to give us time, staff and council, planning commission and others, the public, talk about what kind of development should take place in this new area that has been placed into the moratorium. So by adopting this tonight, we're putting in place a stop to all development within the boundaries that were set by the ordinance. If you recall, it was the west side of State Street through the east side of Ensign between Platte Avenue and Railroad. And so once you adopt that, no permits will be issued until we get this done. We anticipate it's set for 6 months. We anticipate to hold our first public meeting next week, actually, and we will have further public meetings after that to get the input that we need to develop the policy for Mr. Wilson to draft the appropriate ordinance and restrictions for the area.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Wells? Seeing none. Next, we'll hear public comment. Is there anybody that wishes to speak on this issue? Seeing none, I would ask the clerk if you received any oral or written comments in your office prior to the public hearing.
No, Your Honor.
Council discussion. Are there any questions from council or discussion?
Nothing new this round.
There's no further discussion. I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second. I have a motion by Lisa Northrup and a second by Kevin Lindell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. Council action, Mr. Wilson.
Mayor and council, you've heard presentation of the ordinance. Appropriate action is approval or rejection of a resolution approving on second reading, on second and final reading, ordinance 1233, imposing a moratorium on new residential development in a defined portion of the B1 zoning district in the downtown area, and authorization to publish by title only.
Would entertain a resolution.
Your Honor, I would offer a resolution approving second and final reading of ordinance number 1233, imposing a moratorium on new residential development in a defined portion of the B1 zoning district in the downtown area, and authorization to publish by title only.
Second?
Have a resolution by Lisa Northrup and a second by Allison Howe. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
Next on the agenda is a public hearing for the consideration of an application for a variance for setback requirements for 601 Main Street. Council will be acting in the capacity of the Zoning Board of Appeals for this matter. Once again, this is a public hearing and the same rules apply as the last public hearing. First is the issue of legal notice. Mr. Brennan, has the hearing been properly noticed?
Yes, Your Honor, legal notice of this public hearing appeared in the Fort Morgan Times on June 14th.
Next presentation of the application, Mr. Glanmeyer.
All right, good evening. Thank you, council. What you have in your packet tonight is a request for a variance to the setback requirements in the B1 zone. This is a request to have a lesser setback than would be required in this at this lot. The applicant has owned and operated a convenience store and fueling station at this location for quite some time. I think you're familiar with the Stinker store there at Platte Avenue and Main Street. It's really tight. If you've ever tried to get fuel there or use a convenience store, the circulation there is really bad. There's a lot of access points onto both highways, tight, difficult to get in and out of the pumps, no way to pull forward if somebody's in front of you, so on and so forth. So the applicant has desired to redevelop that, build a larger convenience store, set the pumps toward the back of the lot. put 4 pumps next to each other, access in and off of the alley, and then also move the access points to the site to the farthest points from the intersection. All of this is really good stuff for access to that site. Staff's really worked with the applicant to come up with a way to make this work better, I think, for everybody, including his business. And I think we've come to a good compromise on this. The issue at hand is that in order to put the building toward the front and have all the room for circulation in the back, we need a lesser setback. The B1 zone's an interesting animal in our code. The setbacks for the front in the code are they're dictated by the average of all of the buildings on that block, which makes a lot of sense in the downtown area where most of the buildings are built basically on the lot line. But when you get in these outer areas and you've got a mishmash of different buildings that are, one may be 40 feet back and the other one may be 10 feet back and another one might be on the lot line, it makes it really difficult to figure out what the front setback is. But I think in this case, a setback that is near the property line makes a lot of sense, similar to what we have downtown. It doesn't affect sight distance from the highway either direction. We won't have any issue there. And it does allow a lot better circulation and flexibility on that site going forward. So the applicant's asking for a setback that would be 1 foot off the property line. I think that's certainly appropriate in this case, given all of the conditions that I've described, and we certainly support the application if it moves forward tonight. We haven't received any comments for or against. We did have someone call that was concerned about how that might affect alley access and parking that's adjacent to the alley. And so we'll work with the applicant and with that owner to make sure that, I think what we'll find is that it's going to improve everything in that corner. And I think with just a little time sitting down with those folks, I think they'll recognize that. But they were not opposed to the application, just asking more questions than anything. The applicant is here tonight. Mr. Titmus is here. If you have questions of him, I think he's done a great job articulating how he meets the criteria that's in the code. You have that before you. Like I say, we certainly would recommend approval. The only condition we would have is that the variance would run with the land and the lot in question until the site was redeveloped. I don't want to presume that going forward 50 years from now this would make sense if they decided to come in and tear that building down and do something different. We'd want to review that again. So I think that's fair. But I think for the development that's proposed in the condition that it's proposed, I think if we apply that condition to the approval, staff would certainly be happy with that. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have of me.
I got one just out in looking at the proposal of the location of that. It looks like it's going to impact the line of sight for the southbound portion of Main Street and possibly Platt Avenue turning north. Do you see any concerns with that?
Yeah, I don't. Ron, when we applied the sight distance triangle criteria we have, it certainly meets the criteria just fine. So it may appear that way, but the building actually sits far enough back with that truncated corner. It's hard to see in this drawing, but the corner there is truncated, and that actually gives you plenty of sight distance to see around that building in this.
So that dark gray piece, there's the stripe line that goes around there. The dark gray is not building.
No.
That's
Sidewalk.
actual, that's the sight line?
Yeah, that's just the improvements, the sidewalk and the edge of the curb and that. And then that hatched line is also not building in there as well. The building's the white, but you can see there's just a truncated corner right there that's actually the front door. It's just hard to see in this drawing, but yeah, when we applied that, it certainly met all the criteria, so I think we'll find that it'll work just fine.
So the entrance will be off of Main and then through the alley off of Platt.
There's two accesses to the site. There's one off of Main Street, that further one to the north there. in between those sort of gray areas that you were describing earlier. Then there's also a new access point. We're going to move the access point that's currently closest to Main Street on Platte Avenue. It's going to move to the west, to the very western edge of the lot.
Okay.
It's hard to see in this drawing, but there's a curb cut in there. So on the very western side, and then there's also access from the alley. The applicant will have to work with CDOT on access permits, and he knows that going forward. So, and he has started that conversation as well. So
Okay.
And you say there is access from the alley?
there will be.
Okay, great.
Yep, in and out of those pumps back there. Yep.
And any layout has got to be better than the current one. Yeah, that's,
Yeah, for sure.
You're right.
Yep.
it's kind
It's
of
tough.
a,
It's tough.
kind of a, I avoid that section
Yeah.
right there because people are kind of crazy and.
Well, and I think where the store is out there initially, line of sight was my concern too, but then you start looking at it, if anything on southbound Main Street, it's going to block westbound Platte as far as seeing that, and that's not applicable to anything you're doing anyway, because you would have to be looking over at the other one. So if it's on the other corner, it might impact it or something, but I think where it's at, that I'd agree with you. It doesn't look like it's going to impact anything there. And like everybody else has been talking about, trying to free the congestion as much as we can from probably our busiest intersection in town and moving Entrance away, I think makes good sense.
Steve, is there going to be any improvements to the alley on the north side?
You know, I've talked with Roger a little bit about that, and we've talked about some improvements to that back area back there. Yep.
Okay. It's a very well heavy traveled alley there.
Yes.
So,
Yep, with the parking that we've allowed back there and the access off the alley, yep.
So is there going to be cutting across the double yellow lines going north on Main to access it?
Well, CDOT will control what that looks like, and it is conceived. I think people do that now, you know.
Yeah.
I don't, we won't get involved in that particularly, but certainly I can't imagine they're going to require right in, right out there, but they conceivably could. The access permit comes from them, and if they dictate that that's right in, right out only, that would prevent that, right? No lefts in, no lefts out.
Just checking.
Yeah. I think the desire is to have it exist as it does today, where someone can get into that sort of turn lane and make a left into there. And I certainly see people trying to make lefts out of there as well, which is quite difficult. I've watched people do it.
Okay.
Steve, one other thing that really isn't directly related to this, but we've had stores built in that area that have a specific type of finish that have raised some concerns by people. Do we, I know it's not part of the variance, but are the finishes on the building going to be similar to what it is now, or is it going to be, do we know?
I
don't
have
think
not
we've
seen
gotten
any
that.
elevations or anything specific to the building. I've seen what you all have in front of you. Roger, I don't know if you want to talk about the building at all. I don't know anything about that. Okay. I'll let Mr. Titmus speak to that. So,
Mayor, Council, I appreciate you giving me some time to talk to you. I'll address the question right away and save the stuff that I thought I'd talk about for later. The building is going to have 3 types of finish on it. It'll have a wainscot with stone, dry stack stone. It'll have stucco on the facades that don't face the street so much. Have a lot of glass on the sides that do. A lot of glass on that side to the north so that we invite customers in off of the forecourt. I don't have a picture to show you, but there is a store on Colfax and Chambers that we opened up on Monday that this is in Aurora, if you're ever in town. It looks pretty much like the one we're going to do, except this one will have that entrance on that corner, which we think will be nice looking too. It's got some playful architecture. It's not exactly symmetrical. It's got this flag feature with our skunk logo on it that we're kind of proud of. And of course the canopy is just going to look like a regular Sinclair canopy with the green on it and a little dinosaur.
Because you got to have the dinosaur.
Got to have the dinosaur.
Okay. I appreciate you asking that. I was going to wait a little later on, but, okay. Does anybody else have any other questions for the applicant? Thank you. Next is public comment. Is there anybody that wishes to speak on the issue? Seeing none, I would ask the city clerk if you received any oral or written prior to this hearing.
Not through my office, Your Honor.
Council have any comments or questions, concerns?
I just appreciate the work that went into making it through and working really well with our staff. Thank you.
Okay. I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
A motion by Lisa Northrup and a second by Clint Anderson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Council action, Mr. Wilson.
Mayor and council, you've heard the presentation. In support of this request for a variance, appropriate action is a resolution to approve or deny the variance request.
I would entertain a resolution for or against.
Your Honor, I offer a resolution to approve case 19-001 VA for 601 Main Street for variance to allow for a lesser front setback than required by code for this zoning district.
Second.
With the following conditions. Almost, we're so close, Kevin. With the following conditions, that the variance run with the land and lot in question until such time the property is redeveloped, and also per section 20-3-150A3, unless otherwise stated in the board minutes, all variances must be implemented within 6 months from the date such variance is granted.
Second.
Made it.
Have a resolution by Allison Howe and a second by Kevin Lindell. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Steve.
Next is a presentation on a request for the approval of a sole source purchase for grant-funded specialized police equipment. Chief Schultz.
Mayor, City Council, Police Department is requesting approval for a sole source authorization of purchase of a crisis negotiation throw phone system. In 2017, we requested grant funding to the Division of Criminal Justice in the amount of $26,500. It was a competitive grant process. We were granted those monies. The monies were held up in Washington, D.C. for 2 years, and we just received approval to draw down on those monies. This throw phone system is a very sophisticated telephone system that will allow us to negotiate via telephone with someone who may be barricaded in their home or take a hostage situation. Since 2017, there's been about 3 to 4 examples where we would have used this. So it's not something that I think that's going to sit on the shelf unused. We would have used it as recently as a couple weeks ago, the incident in Brush. It's fully funded by the grant, though the cost of the equipment has gone up slightly, but we are pretty confident we can get it within the amount originally specified in the grant, $26,500. The reason for the sole source is there's only one vendor within 200 miles, and this is the only system that has some of the sophisticated electronics that we would like in this piece of equipment. We're very fortunate in that this company was originally out of California. A few years ago, they moved to Kimball, Nebraska, so they're really not far away. They've been an excellent company to work with. I've worked with them in the past. They drove down from Kimball to Fort Morgan to demonstrate this equipment for us. So it seems like a perfect fit. Willing to answer any questions you might have.
So are they the only source that makes this phone?
No, there's several others around the United States, but they are the only one who makes it with some of the sophisticated electronic components that we want. The only one in the country that makes what we want within the phone system.
Which is, give us an idea, or give me an idea of what some of these attributes are.
Or are they secrets and you can't share?
I'd rather not say in this venue. I can tell you that they're officer safety related. It will improve our investigative capabilities. It'll be safer for everybody involved. They're within the document that you're looking at.
Is there any additional cost for the line, cell service, anything like that?
No, it's all works off cable, and the cable's included.
A throw phone with cable.
Yeah, exactly. I understand what you're saying. It does have recording capabilities, and it will give us quite a bit of an investigative edge, quite a bit of an officer safety edge. Right now, we have something cobbled together that's about 15 years old that doesn't have the components that we really need.
I would just have a quick timeline question. So we were awarded the grant in 2017, but we didn't receive the funding until March of this year?
Correct.
Okay, so the ask tonight is just, we already have the money, it's just we give approval to
That's
purchase?
exactly correct. We
Okay.
have the money, we're ready to draw down on it. We would purchase this, and then the monies would be reimbursed. And it's been fully approved. We have the award letter, and this is a company that many police departments in Colorado use because of some of their attributes as a company and the products that they make.
Thanks.
So since we're slow, how long will it take to pay us back then, the grant-wise?
A week.
A week? Okay.
Yeah, the money's here.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been waiting for the money to be approved, and it's approved, and the money is here. I think we should, once we make the purchase, I'm thinking 5 business days.
Oh, okay.
It's getting the money, but getting the money is approved, that's the problem.
Yeah, it was tied up for a long time in D.C. Was not released by President Trump till just recently because of some of the immigration issues in the country, and Colorado being discussed about being a sanctuary state.
Does anybody else have any questions for Chief Schultz? Seeing none, I would entertain a resolution.
Your Honor, I would offer a resolution approving expenditures in the amount of $26,500 for an EMT call box System 8 and auxiliary equipment.
Second?
Have a resolution by Lisa Northrup and a second by Allison Howe. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks.
Next is presentation and possible action on approval of a prepayment agreement with Northern Water. Mr. Nation, this is going to be expensive.
Good evening. Yeah, this is just the start of it.
Yeah,
so.
whenever we see you.
When we put together the budget last year, I came in kind of at the last minute and asked for this $500,000 towards the Eastern Pump Station. The construction of the pump station won't occur until next year. But we agreed, since we were the largest participant, we went ahead and put $500,000 in our budget so we could kind of cash flow some of the preliminary construction aspects of the pump station. They want to begin some of the aspects of the work potentially still in 2019 before full construction in 2020. And so that was why I requested it in the budget. Northern Water felt that we needed to have this little short agreement put together just so all the other participants in the group knew that this $500,000 comes out of our portion of the entire construction allotment. This isn't an additional just, hey, we're happy to throw in $500,000 to make this work easier. It's coming out of our future and, you know, part of the construction cost. And so that's kind of the real basics of it. It's just a short agreement that Northern just wants to have in place, so it's very clear about where this money is coming from and why it's going into the project early. And so I will have more money in the budget and Al's budget in a couple of weeks. It'll speak for the rest of the construction on the project. But Northern wanted this in place. The Northern Board has already reviewed this at their last board meeting and approved it to go forward. So I'm just here tonight looking to get approval and the mayor's signature. So any questions?
Is this, so the document just shows the rest of the group that were, so it's prepaid. I still am struggling with.
Yeah, so you guys of council have approved us to be a member of this small group that is going to build the pump station. And when we got into budgetary discussions, they needed one of us to step forward and come up with some of our final construction money a little bit early. And they didn't want to enter into an agreement with all of the participants in the pump station. And so we're the ones that kind of triggered the construction of the pump station. And so I kind of felt it was kind of our obligation to go ahead and step forward and come up with some of the funds early. And so this is just making that agreement on paper. So
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. So
The total cost is going to be proportionate to this.
Yeah, it's all about capacity that's gained in the pipeline once the pumps are built. And so we get the largest benefit from the construction of this pump station. And so therefore, we're responsible for the majority of the cost.
And this is the one spot that we have a bottleneck.
So yes, it helps. Yeah, it helps with that bottleneck, and it helps everybody that's at the very end of the line.
And Jeff, how specific do we need to be with this resolution? Just in the agenda, it's pretty vague about just approval of the agreement. Is that enough, or does it have like a fancy number that goes with it? Or?
No, I don't think so. I think it's approval of the agreement is adequate.
Do we need to? Do we need to authorize them? I mean, is this one of those where we need to say that we authorize the mayor to sign the agreement?
That would probably help. I think he's the signator on all of the Northern documents.
Yes, I think that'd be useful to include in the motion.
Okay. Are we ready for a resolution?
We are ready.
I would entertain one.
Your Honor, I have a resolution to approve the prepayment agreement with Northern Water and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement.
Second.
I have a resolution by Allison Howe and a second by Doug Sashaw. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Brent. Next is a presentation on a resolution accepting a grant from the Federal Aviation Administration for the Airport Apron Project and authorizing the mayor to sign the grant documents. Mr. Glanmeyer.
All right, thank you. What this item is about is the successful award of a grant from the FAA in the amount of $959,182. So we've been working with the FAA over the last year to identify a project and seek a grant at the airport. This is to replace the apron. I call it the airplane parking lot. It's pretty old if you've been up there in a long time. It's concrete, but it's cracked in everywhere. I mean, a number of places, and it's just outlived its life. So the staff worked with our contract engineers to identify a project. We wrote a grant, and we were successful. So the grant documents came. There's a tight turnaround time frame on these. We need to get them signed and back to the FAA next week. So I have this before you for approval tonight to accept the grant and authorize the mayor to sign it.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Glamler? If there are none, I would entertain a resolution.
Your Honor, I would offer a resolution accepting a grant from the Federal Aviation Administration for the Airport Apron Project and authorizing the mayor to sign the grant documents.
Second.
You. I have a resolution by Lisa Northrup and a second by Kevin Lindell. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah.
Thanks, Steve. Next is presentation on bids for the airport apron construction.
All right, well, we'll fly right into this one.
Amen.
Yeah.
Go back to your corner.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, for that, you get to stay late.
So, we talked about the grant a second ago. This is the project where we'll spend the money. So this is to replace the apron. We did bid this project out in 2 schedules to replace the existing apron and hopefully expand it with a small hard stand. The project's just a little more expensive than we were able to get grant funding for. When we bid it out, we only had 1 bidder. We did have a mandatory pre-bid walkthrough. We only had 1 bidder attend that. We did receive 1 bid for Schedule 1 is $836,028.50. The second schedule, they bid for $312,640. That would bring both schedules at $1.15 million. We are required to have our engineers oversee part of the project. And so, you know, they have some dollars in there for $116,000, almost $117,000. It's really just too much with the $959,000 that we got in grant. We have to match that with 5%. The state will match it with 5%. We just can't bridge that gap. It's too big. It's 300-some thousand. So what we're asking tonight is just the award of Schedule 1 for $836,028.50. This is under the engineer's estimate, so we're confident the bid is a good bid. It's a qualified bid. The engineer has reviewed it as well. They're satisfied that we've got a good bidder here. McAtee Simon obviously has done a lot of work for the city. They're currently working for us over at Center Point. Did streets last year. They were on the airport project before, so they know what they're getting into up there. And I think this is a good bid, a good contractor, and we've got no hesitation with only the 1 bidder. And neither does the FAA. We talked with them about that as well, and they're comfortable with just a single bid on this project. And like I say, the engineer was happy as well. So that's the ask tonight, is to award a contract to McAtee Construction, doing business as Simon, in the amount of $836,028.50.
Are they going back, are they going to tear up the current concrete and go back with concrete or asphalt?
Yeah, so they're going to tear out the existing, it's a good question. They're going to tear out the concrete entirely and remove that off-site. They're going to come back in with a road-based type material and then asphalt on top of that, which saved us quite a little bit of money rather than going back with concrete. And the FAA's happy with that product. They've done these in other airports with asphalt aprons, and they've held up well. They've got a tight specification on their asphalt and their base course. So.
Is that going all the way up to the fueling portion?
Yep. It'll go up to the fueling station, almost to those hangars. We can't pave in front of the hangars. That's not considered part of the apron. But there's existing concrete there that we can get up to. And it'll also increase the fillet a little bit off of the taxiway onto those taxi lanes, so that there's a better turning radius for the planes to get in onto that taxi lane 1, or A, I think it is, Alpha. And then, of course, we'll replace all the parking stands as well. So this will also get us a little bit of signage for that turf runway that parallels 52. Planes get confused. They'll be on the apron, and they'll start down what looks like, you know, a taxiway to our main runway, and it goes to that turf runway. And we've had some near misses with planes driving off into the grass there, and that's not meant for them. So we'll put some good signage up there so that it's clear that's not where they're trying to go. So,
Detrimental to the jets,
yeah, those bigger planes, that would be bad.
and it will correct that.
Yes, this will correct that.
Steve, what's the time frame on this?
Well, it's a 45-day construction period, so I've been bugging my friends at Simon because they are busy. I mean, we've got them so busy at Centerpoint. Yeah, it needs to be done this year. And so they're hoping, we're going to meet and talk schedule next week, but I'm hoping to have them out there right after the aerobatic competition, which is the same weekend as Bobstock. I'd like to see them start up there and get this done before, we get into the fall months.
Is it going to be disruptive to the?
Yeah.
Will the airport still be able to operate?
Yeah, you can fly in and out. You just won't be able to park your plane over there for 15 days. So we're doing it in 2 phases. We'll do that front part up by the taxiway, and that's a 15-day schedule. So once that's open, then at least you'll be able to access the taxi lane and part of the taxi, the apron. Then it's 30 days for that back area by the fuel pumps. So there will be some coordination on fueling of aircraft, and our FBO up there is prepared with a fueling truck, and we'll do the best we can to get planes fueled while we're rebuilding that for the 30 days.
Sure, thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else have any questions for Steve? If not, I would entertain a resolution.
Your Honor, I would offer a resolution approving the bid from McAfee Construction doing business as Simon in the amount of $836. Well, let me start over. $836,028.50, and authorize the mayor to sign the construction agreement for the airport apron rehabilitation project.
Second.
I have a resolution by Lisa Northrup and a second by Kevin Lindell. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Those scents always throw me off.
Yeah.
Next is presentation on bids for materials for the Centerpoint Plaza Infrastructure Development Project. Mr. Glanmeyer.
Okay. So continuing on with construction work out at Centerpoint, you'll remember we talked during our change order request that the city was going to buy material and help keep the costs down a little, keep the markup out of the contractor's bid. So this is a request to buy pipe material for the Phase 2 of Centerpoint construction. Thanks to Doug Hoffman's help, we were able to get, 5 bidders on this, very competitive bids. The low bidder for all of this pipe and all of the things that come with it is $65,053 from Core and Main. So that's the request tonight, is to approve the bid from Core and Main in the amount not to exceed $65,053 for pipe material for the Centerpoint Plaza project.
Okay. So we don't worry about contractor markup?
No.
Very good.
What does P pipe stand for? Dual wall.
Dual wall, that's a good question.
It's okay if you don't know. It
I
just
don't
sounds
know
silly
the
to say
answer.
that in a resolution, just for the record.
Okay.
Polypropylene.
Polypropylene.
Polypropylene. Got it.
So I'm used to HDPE, so Derek put the bid together.
Putting it phonetically. Okay.
Thank you, Doug.
He's all knowing.
Okay. I would entertain a resolution.
Your Honor, I would offer a resolution approving the acceptance of a unit bid prices for HP Storm dual wall polypropylene pipe from Core and Main in the amount not to exceed $65,053.
Second.
I have a resolution by Lisa Northrup, second by Kevin Lindell. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay, thank
And
you.
thanks, Doug.
Yeah.
Next is presentation on bids for roadway design in the Pioneer and Phoebic Farm subdivision. Mr. Glanmeyer.
All right, well, keeping with trying to get things built, I guess, We've got a couple of things we've been working on. Down off of Gateway is a subdivision that's been in the ground for quite some time. State Street's in there, Box Elder, some other roads that aren't built yet. And understanding that housing is a priority, one of the things that keeps coming into our office is, well, how come we can't build a house over there? Well, it's because there's no roads. And, you know, I've been working with Jeff and some others, Sharon Helms, you know, trying to get some houses built down in there. We decided that we had a little money in the budget this year for to help with the housing issue. Maybe we could get the roads designed in there and then possibly built here, you know, in the very near future, next year, the year after, and open that subdivision up for development so folks could come in and build single-family homes down in there. And in addition to that, we've got Feebig Farms that we bought recently, and we're looking at a couple of developments over in that area, particularly adjacent to the industrial park. And so if we could get Beaver Avenue extended, you know, from the industrial park over to Barlow Road, that would open up that subdivision for a couple of potential industrial clients. So we kind of package this together. Let's design all the roads at one time, get a good product that way. And so we put this out to bid for engineering companies. We received 5 proposals, all very good proposals. I was surprised at the price range from, you know, $35,000 all the way up to $112,000. Really just a matter of who's busy and who isn't, is what it boils down to. You know, we took the low bid and really vetted that, called a bunch of references, looked at projects they had done, talked to folks that they'd worked for, and feel pretty good about them. We've never worked with them, but I think they'll give us a quality product out of both of those subdivisions, and that way we can at least get these design drawings done, and when the money's available or the time is right, we'll start building some roads in those areas. So I'm going to ask for a little bit of a contingency just because I don't know what we're going to get into down there off of Gateway. That's an old subdivision and it's flat, and I don't think there's any issues, but we may have some stormwater problems that we run into or something, and just want to have a little bit extra in case we get into something. So approximately 20% is about $8,200. So the ask tonight is approval to enter into contract with HCL Engineering and Surveying LLC for an amount not to exceed $50,000, and that gives us about $8,300 in contingency on their bid. So I'd be happy to answer any questions we might have about that one.
And I'd only add really quick that we're looking at getting this done because we've been working with Sharon Helms at the Housing Authority, and she's told us she's got between 6 and 8 potential self-help home individuals that she's been working on to pre-qualify to be able to build those homes. She's already built several within the community. You've probably seen some of them over by Optimus Park that have been built. They're very nice homes, and it's a very great program to help leverage people into home ownership. She's done a really good job with that, and that is probably the most affordable area that she's been able to find in order to continue this project in the community to provide affordable housing and houses for families. So we're really happy to, or we're hoping to be able to move forward with this design and then work with her and the other property owners in the area to figure out how can we come up with some funding for the roads to be built, because we really think this is an important part of addressing the issue with the lack of homes within our community for people to buy and live in.
Anybody have any questions for Steve? Now, this is just for the design on both phases.
Correct.
If there's no more questions, I would entertain a resolution.
Your Honor, I offer a resolution to accept the proposal from HCL Engineering and Surveying LLC for an amount not to exceed $50,000.
Second?
I have a resolution by Allison Howe and a second by Lisa Northrup. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Next on the agenda is a public hearing on the ordinance rezoning Lot 1 of the CenterPoint Plaza subdivision. Once again, this is a public hearing, and the same rules will apply as the previous hearings tonight. First is the issue of legal notice. Mr. Brennan, was the hearing properly noticed?
Yes, Your Honor, a legal notice of this public hearing appeared in the Fort Morgan Times on June 14th.
Next is a presentation of the ordinance. Mr. Glanmeyer.
Okay, thank you. So this packet item tonight is to rezone a lot that the city owns. So we're the applicant on this one tonight. We recently took one of the lots in CenterPoint Plaza. This would be the one that's on the southwest corner of the X, right, Beaver and Saunders. We subdivided that into two lots, one small, I think it's about 1.5 acres, and then left about 14 acres for what we're going to talk about tonight. So the 14-acre-ish lot, we've had a lot of interest in that, particularly for multifamily type housing. And so the interest seemed to be strong enough that it seemed like, well, let's just rezone it so that it's not a special use permit, it's a use by right. And if we can get one of these folks in here, they'll be able to get started on their development a lot quicker. So what we're requesting tonight is to change that lot from the current zoning, which is B2 general business, to R3 high density residential. This is consistent with Sol Naciente. So it doesn't constitute a spot zone in this case. There is adjacent zoning that's the same. So no concern there. It's a city-initiated rezoning. I've put the criteria in the memo in your packet. I think staff's done a good job of articulating why this is important to the applicant. We've received no comments. We did take this to Planning Commission. Had no issues there. So we recommend approval of this tonight, that you would change the rezoning of that lot from B2 general business to R3 high density residential. And the applicant is here tonight. If you have any questions of him.
He's really difficult to work with, though.
What's your reason for changing?
Really good.
My
question was, when were you going to get started with construction, is what I was wondering.
Well, we plan to bring that back to you soon, and I can fill you that in on a little bit on that in our announcements here at the end. But yeah, we're working with 3 different developers that have interest because that's in the opportunity zone, which has special tax benefits for investments. All of a sudden, it's become a very hot piece of property.
This is a public hearing. Let's keep
Yes,
comments to the... I've been dying to say that.
I told you he was difficult to work with.
Thanks for reining me in.
Okay. Any questions pertaining to the public hearing for anybody?
It might be helpful for the public to clarify the difference between those two zoning, like just really briefly.
Yeah, general business allows, I mean, it's basically what it says. So it allows retail, commercial, offices, this type of thing. But it doesn't allow multifamily. It does by special use. But again, I think in this instance where we know we're going to have somebody looking specifically to do that, it makes sense just to zone it for that so they can move through the process a little quicker. But outside of that, yeah, I mean, it's the high-density residential is exactly what it says, right? I mean, we're looking for small lot or small unit square footages, many of them, multiple of them. And so I think what we're looking at is something similar to Sol Naciente, several buildings with several units in them, or a large apartment complex, something of this nature.
So by rezoning it to R3, if for some reason high density didn't go in there, is general business still allowed? Or would we have to go back and redo this again? I mean, That's not going to happen,
Yeah, I don't
but
envision that would happen either. The list of
asking.
use by rights for each of those zones is in your packet. So if you look further back in your packet, the R3 and the B2 tables are in there. You would not get a lot of the things that the B2 does allow in R3. You couldn't do tractor sales, agricultural equipment sales on that lot. And then there's just a multitude of other types of business and retail that you wouldn't be able to do with this change. So just recognize that. You're going to eliminate most of the business opportunity on that lot if you make this change tonight. You really are setting this up for multiple family primarily.
Which is good, which I think is great. I just
Yep.
want to make sure that
No, that's a great
we
question.
understand that
Yeah.
we could be back here doing this again if, yeah.
If Home Depot showed up and wanted to build there, we'd have to
Exactly.
rezone it.
Well, we own it, or the applicant, we can do it.
We can do that.
So, any other comments or questions regarding this rezoning? Seeing none?
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Next is public comments. Is there anybody who wishes to speak on the issue? Seeing none, I would ask if the city clerk if you received any oral or written comments prior to the hearing?
No, Your Honor.
Council discussion. Are there any questions from council? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to close.
Second.
I have a motion by Lisa Northrup and a second by Allison Howe. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Council action. Mr. Wilson.
Mayor and council, you've heard presentation of the ordinance on first reading. Appropriate action is a resolution approving the ordinance 1234 on first reading.
I would entertain a resolution.
Your Honor, I would offer a resolution on first reading of approval for case 19-01ZO, a rezoning from B2 general business to R3 high-density residential.
Second. A resolution by Lisa Northrup, a second by Kevin Lindell. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
Next is presentation calling for the general municipal election to be held in conjunction with the November 5th, 2019 Morgan County coordinated election and approval of the draft 2019 election calendar. Mr. Brennan.
Thank you, Your Honor. It's an election year for the city, so we will have, as we traditionally have, coordinated election with the county. The county will do all the mail ballot preparation and all of that kind of stuff. This resolution authorizes you to sign an intergovernmental agreement with them to share in the costs of that election, to participate in. Each of us has our responsibilities outlined in that IGA. It also says we'll use the state election code instead of the municipal election code because we're coordinating with the county, and that we will certify the ballot content by a certain date, things like that. It's basically the same agreement we do every time we have an election, so.
Okay. With that, I would entertain a resolution.
Your Honor, I would offer a resolution calling for a general municipal election to be held in conjunction with the November 5th, 2019 Morgan County coordinated election and approval of the draft 2019 election calendar.
Second.
I have a resolution by Lisa Northrup and a second by Clint Anderson. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
Next is 2020 budget calendar.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think we're to the main event now because we're talking about money. Of course, I guess we've been talking about money the whole time. We're going to go through all of the various accounts that are in the electric fund as well as the gas fund tonight. So we've got a lot of different people here to present their budgets. I want to first thank the managers of the various departments and funds for their efforts to put together a thorough budget every year. And I want to thank the directors and our treasurer, Gene Kinney, for their efforts to work through these numbers and make sure that they're right and that they're adequate. You won't find tonight, we're still working on some of the salaries and wages. If you look at the numbers that were in your table file, we're still working to get those final numbers put together, and we'll have those in there. But we're generally going to go through the various issues in each of the departments and talk to you about a few of the highlights or lowlights of each one, answer any questions, and then maybe talk about some policy issues. So to start out, we have light and power. Doug's been hiding out there, waiting, anticipating.
And Your Honor, as Doug moseys up to the podium, I just wanted to point out in the packet, there were 2 copies of the electric fund, and the utility billing sheet was not included. In the hard copies that were in your table files, it's correct, so you should have everything.
Okay, so these are all correct.
Yeah, so the paper copies are correct.
Good evening.
Mosey on up.
Well, I'm Mosey.
There you go.
Not a lot of exciting things in my budget for 2020. I had a few items that I increased, actually 2 I increased and 1 I just moved from one line item to the other, and that would have been the tools and equipment. Went from 20,000 to 50,000. I had 30,000 in a capital budget. I couldn't find a use for it. I needed a piece of equipment. It was over 30, but I needed a piece of equipment that was under 30. So it didn't work for me. All my tools, they run the hydraulic tools and stuff for $4,000 or $5,000, which did not fit into that capital 30. So I just moved it up to 50. Uniforms, I moved up a couple grand, and that's just cost. The cost of those have gone up a lot. And that's FR clothing, so that's PPE. That's what my guys are required to wear, working on the power lines. So increases cost there. Overhead street lighting. Councilmember Lindell will be happy about this. I'm trying out some lights that we're gonna maybe be able to dim and bring back up. So you'll see those soon.
Cool.
And we'll see how they work.
So smart lights?
Yeah, it depends on who's running the iPad. So we'll see how they work. Education and training all stayed the same. Pretty much everything stayed the same. I got a bucket truck in there for next year. We're replacing the small service truck, Unit 13, with a new truck. Next year, I added a reel trailer. I've been taking a beating for the last 3 years, my guys, pulling big wire off trailers by hand and reeling it up the same. So I decided I'd put a reel trailer in the budget finally for the guys to do their job a little bit easier and a little more efficient. So that's another capital. Transformers. We added underground conductors this year. I've had it in the past. Those underground conductors are expensive, especially when you get to the bigger wire sizes. So like the west sub that we just reconductored, that money will get pulled out of that fund for next year instead of taking it out of like my maintenance of the lines or something like that. And Brent's going to talk to you about a couple other things, but other than that, my budget pretty much stayed the same. So I'll entertain any questions.
So you're making him do the big ones?
Yeah, I get to do the big
Yeah.
Awesome.
Those are the policy issues we were going to talk about.
Looks good. I think you are good.
Good job, Doug.
Really good.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Does he get to mosey away now?
Yeah,
One-
just a mosey away.
One question, though, Doug, before you run off. You have on your shoulder there RP3. That's a pretty big deal, isn't it?
It is. I think it is.
Yeah.
System reliability.
Good job.
So this is the part where I get to dabble in multiple budgets. So we started talking about some of these bigger numbers, and I just told Doug I would come up and hit on these. These are the budget we would normally put a few different things in. And so just wanted to hit on a couple of, we wanted to put a place marker in Doug's budget for fiber expansion. Just so you're aware, we asked to put $100,000 there. We really don't know. We're looking at some potential areas to expand into with the fiber, but this comes down to us working with Allo and deciding whether it's feasible, economically to do that. I wanted to make sure that we at least had a little bit of money and a budget line item set aside for that. So if we do something in 2020, we do have some money set aside that we can start heading in that direction. It's not a promise that we're going to do anything, but at least wanted to have something in the budget for it.
Sorry, I guess I don't have to raise my hand.
Yeah. Lisa.
So on that same line, if we should move forward with new housing going out into Center Point, are we set currently to do fiber out there to be able to take Allo out to, say, a large apartment complex, or is that something we would be using this in?
There may be the need to take some monies out of a line item like that in order to do that. We tried to design the system the best that we can take those things on, but there'll be need for conduit and fiber going into the ground on those type of things in order to get to their transmission point. And so we will need some funds on those type of things. So.
Are we still, whenever we put in like conduit for electricity or we're putting in other utilities, are we laying the conduit so that we have it for the fiber like we were
if it
doing
does make
prior to our
sense,
backbone?
yeah, if it does make sense, we will continue that practice. We keep enough conduit in the store yard that we can place empty conduit easily, so if we need to. So,
okay.
Yep, still that practice. So that's the small one. The other two items that we have in there that are kind of together is I've got $200,000 for roofs at the complex. I think just about every roof that we have over at the complex is leaking to some extent. Sam is doing, a very good job of trying to keep up with it with a caulking gun and when he can, and some of our other departments are, checking on things that are leaking. But we've got to a point to where those metal roofs need to be just recoated and sealed. And so Sam has worked with a vendor to at least get us a quote, so we have a placeholder in the budget to do all of the roofs on all of the buildings over there at the complex so we can get them all resealed, and that's the $200,000 that you see there. The other thing that I've also requested, and this is now coming kind of back to the discussion that Jeff wanted to have, and so I told him I would bring it forward, is that our parking lot over there, we've now tore open an additional hole through the asphalt with our truck usage in and out of the buildings. We continue just to put rotomill, asphalt millings into them and keep them patched and filled as much as we can. That parking lot has cracks in it that are now well over probably 2 to 3 inches in size, and we continue to see failure points all throughout it. And so I wanted to know, is this something that I should continue to patch, or is this something, it's at a point to where a complete replacement is what it really needs. We can do patchwork on it, but in order for it to continue to function the best, it would be, I think, and if we're going to be there for a while, it would be in our interest to go ahead and pay to get it paved with the paving contract that Steve does, and just make sure that we have the funds set aside to do it. But I wanted to bring that tonight and see what is council's comfort level with us starting to, put some money towards some of this deferred maintenance that we've been kind of kicking down the road while we've been entertaining the whole new complex conversation. And so in my eyes, I think we're kind of at that point to where I've got to spend some money to fix it up, and part of me just wants to go ahead and just repave it and get some of these issues resolved that we have in that parking lot all in one fell swoop. So,
Well, it's deferred maintenance. It is something that needs to be tended to. If you don't address deferred maintenance on any building, it becomes dilapidated and such. So I guess at this point, I would just suggest we leave it in as a place mark. It's there, and we can throw a dart at it down the road.
Is this money that we, in theory, as you alluded to, as we look at a possible city complex, I get that that's a complicated and subject, we'll just leave it at that. Is this money, so if we put this because that's $700,000 that we're looking, we wouldn't have to necessarily use it in that area if we determined that at some point we were just going to go forward, we could apply that towards a city.
We could. I would say the $500,000 for the parking lot is something that we could probably, hold off on. And, if we ended up building a new complex, let's just say another Gene Doty came along and gave us, $30 million, and we could start building one next year. Yeah. If we could do that, I think the $500,000 is probably something that we could hold off on, and we could get JW's guys in there and do some actual mastic work in the larger cracks, and then just cut out some of the sections that we're starting to really see the problems with, and kind of Band-Aid, the parking lot, just to get it by in the short term. The roofs are something that I don't think we can hold off on any longer. Yeah, so I think we could kick the can on the $500,000, I think, and I'd probably still ask for $100,000 just to do the spot repair work that we need to do. So,
No, by all means, I don't think we take it out.
Yeah.
I just think my point is that we could reallocate that if we.
And I think the point, the bigger point here is for the public as well, that the longer we hold on to these buildings, the more we're going to have to put back into them. As we've noted, there's a lot of inadequate spaces within these buildings for what our current needs are within the city of Fort Morgan. And when we look at designing and building new facilities, these are things to keep in mind, that you're going to be spending money on old facilities, or you can spend money on new facilities. And so the mayor's right, Lisa's right, you don't want to walk away from repairs that are necessary to maintain the buildings you're currently in, such as the roof, fixing spots in the parking lot, and various other issues that tend to crop up in these buildings. But it's I think an important point. We're looking at somewhere $750,000 in repairs on the current buildings, which, when you look at what would it take to pay for a new building, would you be better off to get a facility that meets your needs, and you're putting this kind of money into a new facility versus an old facility. But we can't ignore the maintenance that's necessary, and sometimes maintenance is beyond a point where, when we look at the armory, there's not any amount of maintenance that we look at that is going to bring that back to a usable facility for anything. And so, the whole conversation, I think you guys understand and hit the nail on the head. There's repairs we're going to have to make, and we're going to continue to put those in the budget, and we're going to make those. But we have to make a policy decision at some point. Are we going to continue to put, hundreds of thousands of dollars into facilities that don't necessarily meet our needs, or are we going to look at, alternative facilities, which is what council's asked us to do in the past. So.
And the last one I have in there is just a real easy $1.5 million.
I was wondering when we get to that one.
Yeah. That one, we've debated in the last just week whether we want to leave that one in or not for right now. I was up at Mountain Connect last week, and I know so was Kevin and so was Jeff. And we sat down with Allo at a very interesting presentation on some technology. We're seeing it more and more, and it goes back to what Doug's doing with the street lights. There's possibly a way that we can utilize the street lights to create a network that we can read meters, or at least allow us to read meters from. And so Doug has been doing a lot of homework on the whole smart meter thing and what it's going to cost to move that direction and everything. And that was the $1.5 million was what he wanted to put in the budget for the smart meter part of it. But we've kind of got this gap in there of, it's great to have the smart meters, but we want to have an as efficient as possible way of getting the data from the smart meters and then the ability to talk to smart meters. And so I told Doug we might be a little bit ahead of where we really need to ask for money for smart meters. And so we left it in here because it was getting too close to council time. I didn't want to pull it out. I would just ask council tonight to know that we're looking at this, and I'm hoping that before we finalize the budget, we'll know whether we want to formally leave it in and move forward, or if we do want to focus on this data, the data collection part of it and the network that may be required for that, and how that works with the network that we've built and that Allo is helping us run, and the technology piece that we sat through up at Mountain Connect. And it sounds like this company that we were sitting through their demonstration is more than willing to come out and do a free demonstration project for us here in town. And so it's just a matter of getting coordinated with them and see how quickly we can get up to speed on if their technology will work for us or not. So a lot of moving parts there, but like I said, I didn't want to just pull it out at the last minute and know that it was all in there. So for right now, I would just ask that we leave it in there, but there's a possibility that we'll just remove it for the final budget.
So is this just the data collection portion of it, or do we have to change out the meters?
This is for changing out the meters. This is for getting all of the meters up to a smart meter standard. And the different companies that Doug interviewed have different ways for getting the data back. And we know that their company has a specific way for doing that, and that's fine. It would solve the problem of using the smart meters. We wouldn't be spending $1.5 million and not have a usable smart meter product. But I think there might be more efficient ways for us to take out some of that technology and gain a better technology for everybody at the city that doesn't necessarily have everything to do with the smart meters. Where if we buy this smart meter package, it's just focused on the smart meters. I'm trying to get something bigger here in the way of a technology package out of all this effort that we will focus on and spend money on. So
this will encompass the gas and water?
Yes, and Doug's made sure that Tony and Eric have been at all the demonstrations if they've been available to talk about how it affects their different ERTs and the way they read and all that stuff. And so that's a whole conversation of bringing their meters up to the standard that we need and everything. The electric meters is the first big step in order to make the whole system work, though. So.
Just a quick aside that he'd alluded to and everything is, I think it also reaffirms our decision of taking on Allo as a partner, because they are really looking out for us as far as conversion towards a smart city and being able to use our fiber wisely and being able to use the technology that's available. And I know at one time I was talking with an Allo employee, and he was really questioning this woman who had attachments that went up on the light poles, because he goes, well, what's your feedback? And he knew that if it didn't have a fast enough feedback, that it would be a bottleneck as far as your information and everything. So I do think that this conference helped reaffirm to me that we did make a really good decision when we chose Allo as a partner.
Any other questions on any of those? I'll go sit down.
We'll see you again.
Yes.
Thanks,
Like when
Mary.
you put 1.5 million in there and we just say,
Could you
okay.
hem and haw just a little bit more? Well, maybe we want to, maybe we don't, maybe we do, maybe we will.
It's all fluid, right? We'll make it work in the end.
He'll take it out of somebody else's budget.
So next we have Public Works and Engineering, Steve Glammeyer.
Hello again.
All right. Good evening. First time I've seen you guys tonight. So this is the Public Works engineering budget. I live in the electric fund, and not much in the way of changes from last year. We've increased fuel and oil a little. We'll talk about that in a second. Education and training, we did increase that 1,000. Trying to get Derek out to a few more trainings as well. as he's getting his feet under him. We're trying to get him out to some classes and some things to help him be a little more effective and efficient. And then lastly, fuel and oil went up because I'm going to look for a pickup in our department. Derek and I have been sharing my truck, and it's become quite difficult with the busyness that we have. I'll need to get to the airport, and he's out at Center Point, and so then I'm scrambling to try to find something to get me out there, and borrowing ties, or Derek will borrow ties, or Brent's, and so we've kind of been shifting around as best we can. We make it work, but I think it would just be a little more efficient and effective if we could just have another piece of equipment. So just budgeting for a pickup in 2020 so that we can get out to all of these projects we're working on. That's it for changes in my budget. Everything else stayed the same. Happy to answer any questions on that one. None?
Mosey.
Mosey.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Okay, if I just tackle building maintenance while I'm standing here? Okay, so Sam Shantz couldn't be here tonight, but I told him I'd be happy to stand in his stead. So Sam's budget's in here. This is 012277. Again, not much in the way of changes. He needs a new ladder, so we increased his tools and equipment $500 so he can get a nice ladder. And I think that's it. No, maintenance equipment and vehicle. Oh, he needs new tires on his truck. So we gave him some money for tires for his pickup. That's it.
He doesn't ask for much.
That one was pretty easy. Sam does a great job. I just want to tout him a little. He is a tremendous employee. I mean, he's the only guy that works on these buildings, and it's hard for him to find time off. And even when he is off, he'll get work orders, and he'll come in and work on things. He is just fantastic, and I'm glad to have him in my department. So,
Least we can do is get him tires.
yeah, let's get him some
And I'll-
tires and a
maybe
new
we can
ladder.
Get him a really nice ladder.
Yeah. Any questions on Sam's budget? Okay, I'll be back in a while to do sanitation.
Do you want to just do it while he's there?
Why don't you just keep going?
Okay, all right, well, it'd be the last one I have to deal with. So Bobby couldn't be here tonight either, so again, I told him I'd try to carry the ball for him. So this is 016, the sanitation budget. It's a fairly large budget. Not a lot of changes here. We do have an increase in landfill fees. This was due to the county misquoted us a fee. They said it was going to be, I don't have the numbers in front of me, like 25 cents, and it turns out it's $1 something. So we had to increase those for 2020. So that went from $345,000 to $360,000. A lot of trash out there to get rid of. And just kind of going down through here. Talk about sanitation trucks. You all approved the purchase of a truck this year that we won't receive until next year. They are not even going to start building the body on that truck until December. So we know we're not going to get that truck until 2020. So we went ahead and shifted the money that you approved and the truck you approved for this year. We're going to move that into 2020 so we can pay for it when it does show up, and then it's time to buy another one in 2020, so we're going to budget for it as well. So we have 2 trash trucks budgeted in 2020, but one of them was bought and approved in 2019. It's just we know we're not going to be able to write the check until next year. We're going to try to get the bid out a lot earlier this year on the 2020 truck so that we can actually receive it in 2020.
Do we have to pay for it up front?
No, we don't pay for anything
Maybe we
until
should
we've
order it
received it.
now?
Yeah. I had the same problem in Delta trash trucks. I don't know why they take so long to build and get delivered, and they're so expensive, but it just takes forever to get a trash truck delivered to us. So
A lot of plumbing and hydraulics.
yeah. So those were the big changes for Bobby's budget. I'll do my best to answer questions if you have them.
Concrete pads for dumpsters. Do we have pads under all the dumpsters? And
We do. We did that project this year. We had all those pads built, and then we hired a contractor to come in and set all the pads that we had built. We should be good on all the
okay.
dumpsters, but if you're aware of one, I would love to know about that. Let me know. But I'm certain we've hit them all at this point.
You're talking about concrete under them?
Yeah, the concrete pads under them, yep. And of course, we're still looking to hire that 5th employee so that we can really get ahead of this, you know, I'll call it extra dumping in the alleys of trash. I don't want to say illegal, but I just did, I guess.
And the intent is to use that employee also for doing, inventory is the wrong word, but actually documenting
Yes.
this one needs replaced. And
Yep. Fixing cans, painting dumpsters, you know, fixing lids, replacing cans, you know,
Covering for
replacing
vacation.
dumpsters, all of those things. That employee will do that in addition to collecting all of the trash that we find that's not in the dumpsters, that's been placed beside it or whatever, and just really get ahead of that problem that we have.
And,
you know.
and cover also for vacations
Yep.
and
Yep.
if somebody gets sick. So
Yep.
trash still has to be picked up.
This trash will always be there.
I think we're finally close to hiring somebody. That has taken a long time. It is hard to find employees that are willing to come to work.
Yep. Low unemployment.
Yeah. Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Cozy.
Thanks, Steve. That puts us with Kendra
Utility billing?
at utility billing.
So utility billing is pretty much easy and basic. We're still high on the credit card charges, just because we're trying to get more people to pay by credit card because it's more convenient for them to do so. Pretty much we kind of kept everything the same. We did lower some things because they weren't that high last year in the budget, so we kind of lowered it a little bit. I don't know, it's pretty much basic. Thank you for the inserter, it's amazing. Have to say.
So are we seeing a, what's the word I want to use? Are we seeing a decrease, notable decrease in the number of collections we're having to do that's offsetting our credit card costs? Because at one point didn't we think making it easier to pay in a variety of different ways was keeping us from having to go collect on non-payments, is that?
To be honest, I haven't looked as much, I mean, good evening, Mayor and Council, but I haven't looked as much, and I can look that up and see how much less it is. I know that we're turning things over much, much sooner now because we have made an arrangement with Wakefield, and we used to wait 2 to 3 years on some things, and by then, people are pretty much split town, you know, so there's just no way. And now we're turning things over sooner, and so the dollar amount we turn over may actually be higher than what we used to.
And you don't have to go look that
But we're
up.
getting more money from them. I mean, you know, because on the other ones, we were never receiving the money. And we're also paying a lower percent because Wakefield likes to do collections on more current accounts. And so we're able to negotiate a lower charge for it. So, but I don't know for sure. I'd have to look and see what did collections used to be and what are they now to really be able to know.
Don't do that on my account. That was
You
just
don't
it.
care.
We have the data for it, so.
Hypothetically
pretty much you get it.
speaking,
And one of the other things is just the convenience. People pay online and they're able to pay with their credit card and it gets paid every month and they don't have to worry about it. They don't, you know, I think that there's a convenience benefit to the customer associated with that credit card charge as well. I know a lot of places you go, if you use your credit card, they tack on a fee and we can do that. But I think right now, just making it convenient for the customer has been our focus. We can always tack on a fee and require that and see what it does. But I also know a lot of people have gone to the electronic, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, have basically gone to everything online. They get everything emailed to them. Yep. We're cutting down on the cost of the paper, the postage.
Bills,
The bills are going out electronically. They're getting paid electronically.
we can do that in the system? So we don't, oh.
Yeah, you don't have to get paper bills. If you want them emailed to you, We'll email them to you if you want to pay them online with your credit card.
You can
pay
sign
them
up to
online.
Express Bill Pay and set it up to where you get your bills emailed to you through Express Bill
Because
Pay.
I get them electronic, but I still get the bill in the mail, so.
Yeah, we could stop that bill in mail if
Can you
you'd
do
like
that?
it stopped.
That
Oh,
would be
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, we can. There's cities where they charge people for their bills now. And they have 80% of their people are online billing because people don't want to pay for their bill. I think it might be nice to give people a discount to go to electronic, like one-time discount, not a lot, but just to get people to switch over, because I think they'd like it, especially if they're paying online anyway.
And you can only pay, right now, we can only do credit card, correct?
You can do a check online as well.
So do we get to charge the same amount for the paying by check?
You
'Cause
pay the bill amount.
Right, but do we, so a lot of times companies will get charged for credit card transactions? Is it the same for using like ACH, like using by check?
I think they are.
I think there are charges for ACH, yeah. I'm not sure that those are on the same line on here, but we do get charged for that. Well, we get charged by the bank, oh, for that, yeah. We get charged for ACH based on how many we run through, yeah, so.
That's how banks make money.
It's a great feature for our community. I think it's, even if for the
Yeah.
cost that it costs us, it's.
We went out without it for almost like a year and a half after we went to Cassell, because just getting it all set up so that it would work right and everything kind of took that long. Plus, we wanted to make sure that our billing was working well, because we had gone through a period of time with our prior software where the billing wasn't working at all. And so it took a while to get it set up, but it's the greatest, having it so they can call in on the phone or however they want to do it. If they want to go on Express Bill Pay is another real great way for them to pay. So do you have questions other than that?
Thanks for what
Oh, the inserter is really helping time-wise.
It's amazing.
Because someone had asked whether it would. Well, 2 people are spending a half a day. 2 people used to spend a day and a half. And we're thinking, once they're really, really confident in
Yeah,
this
one person
machine,
could do the
one
machine.
person could do it for half a day.
Yeah, you just load everything in it and it just automatic. It's amazing.
It looks just like the other one.
Have you named it?
It's all
They didn't
electronic.
improve the look. It's the same.
Yeah.
Have you named it yet? Yeah. It does, right.
Call it fun.
Thank you, ladies. We now have Doug Hoffman in Inventory Stores.
Don't you always hate having to follow something like that?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Council.
Fine.
Mine is pretty well straightforward. You'll see a few increases because I'm going to plan on getting a team member next year. So basically data processing, telephone, uniforms, those type line items are just going up. Other than that, we are pretty basic, straightforward. So any questions?
Nope, I would make a comment. You do a pretty phenomenal job by yourself with getting all the supplies for the fiber project, the pipe and that. So I know what you do, and it doesn't go unnoticed, so.
Well, thank you.
Thanks.
During the fiber project, you learned some lingo from those guys. I should have brought that up the other night when they had the celebration, but it didn't dawn on me. So, and some of them you don't want to repeat here because I had to ask the contractors and stuff, what are you looking for? Because they'd call it by a certain name, and that's not what they're called. That's just their nickname for them. So you learn some of those things when you get into new products. And the new LED lights will be here probably Monday.
Yep.
Thanks,
What you're
Jose.
doing is very much, like the mayor said, it's very much appreciated. We're saving, you're saving the city a ton by being able to have it centralized, and I don't think people in the community quite realize, when you have everybody going out and buying for themselves, we're not getting economy of scale, and, having you in that position has completely revitalized the way that we're saving money and gives us opportunity to buy things we might not have been otherwise able to do because we.
Okay, you can quit. Thanks. Any other questions?
And now you can mosey.
Okay.
We needed a mosey music.
We need walk-up music and Mosey music, both. All right, thanks, Doug. And now we go to Brent again, our utility director.
Should I Brent do them all? Whatever.
We should have had him on, yep.
Hello again.
Good evening once again.
Hello. Any surprises this time?
I am asking for a large increase in my budget of $1,000.
No.
Yes.
Sorry.
So, 2 places. I need 500 extra in my fuel and oil. I figure that'll cover my additional trips to Lincoln, Nebraska.
I doubt it.
So, well, hopefully it's just 4 trips and that's all it is. So, and then I'm asking for a little bit more in the maintenance of general property. We've been changing out broken boards in the AC units, it seems like, on a regular basis, and I'm anticipating probably needing to change several next year too. So I wanted to make sure we had enough in there to cover those. So that's one of those where we have this little pool of money under my budget, and we take care of some of the smaller things that Sam does within the actual just complex building. Doug has his own little building maintenance that he does small things, and the electric, and then Tony and Eric have a little bit that they use in their building. So this is for just the complex building when we have some small things that Sam works on in there that we take the money out of. So, but that's it, just those 2 increases, and everything else asking to stay the same.
Cheaper than paying rent up there, huh?
There you go.
In Nebraska.
Yes.
Brent, I think that was the last one that you had in this packet.
Yes.
Very good. Just want to make sure we don't have anything else.
So
keep making you stand up, sit down,
No, that's
stand up,
okay.
sit down.
I don't
He
mind.
doesn't have gas?
Tony's here. so
Tony's
I-
here. He came
Yeah,
in
I'll
last
let
minute.
Tony handle that.
there.
So,
Yeah, they hide out back there.
yeah.
So, thanks a lot, Brent.
Okay,
We
thank you.
appreciate it.
Thanks, Brent.
We should
All right,
elevate a platform.
I know, make them sit up on bleachers.
Yeah, we should. An extension back there.
Sam put one.
Whose budget did we put that in?
It's going in Sam's. It's a maintenance issue. And now we're going to hear from the man behind the green curtain, or the green wall.
Just whisper, "No,
Nelson.
Brendan, come out."
Is he going to come out? Oh, there he is. Yes, Nelson is here.
When we do that?
Nelson, you're up next with your budget. Do you need this? Good? He's got his, what,
Really? You think he's gonna?
what
get
am I
cheaper?
thinking?
Good evening, Your Honor, members of council. My budget really isn't much different from last year. Some accounts went up, some accounts went down. It's an off year for us, so we're not replacing any PCs. We are going to replace the Cassell server. It's going to be a monster, and we'll probably end up building it ourselves. We tend to be pretty persnickety about the parts that we use, and it saves money too. Even with spare parts, just sitting on the shelf, which we do to minimize downtime, we're still saving money over support contracts and things like that. So, I think that's pretty much it. Any questions or?
You had a
You're
big,
going to build the Cassell, the server for Cassell?
Yeah, I'm probably going to go with something like 256 gigs of memory, standard RAID 10 system. So it'll be quick.
you had a big increase on equipment and vehicle. Is that, are we,
He needs tires.
that's a lot of tires? Went up from 500 to 4,000 for maintenance of equipment and vehicle?
Did I do that?
It might be a
I mean, we
mistake.
have a new vehicle. I wouldn't.
Yeah. It might have been a mistake.
Maybe regular
Okay.
unleaded instead
Yeah.
of premium.
Yeah, we're
Not
not
sure
going to
about
use
that
it. We're using premium, yeah.
I mean, we are trying to run that Blazer into the ground, but you know.
It was the projects, so there was projects and equipment under, hang on, try to follow the lines across.
It's kind of a catch-all fund, so printers, printer parts, fusing units, memory, upgrades, miscellaneous cards and hardware, scanners.
Was that all somewhere before? Because we had 0 there last year and we have 25,000 this year?
No, the account gets,
Am I reading it wrong? It's under
Projects and equipment under
equipment under
$5,000.
$5,000, which I thought was funny because it's got $25,000. I think he would like you to.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I put things in accounts and then Jeannie moves them where she feels they're appropriate.
Yeah, and you can't read across when you talk about capital or when you talk about those ones that start with the 5,000, because those accounts are, capital accounts are numbered so that we can tell like what year we did them, you know.
Oh, okay.
Like when I'm dead, you'll still be able to tell we did this in 2000, you know, if you care. Because you'll still be so sad. But anyway, the 250,000s, if you look at those, there's nothing across from those, is there? You look at the ones in the 2019 budget, that's because the way that we numbered them last year, we put them there. But this year, I decided to quit using the 19 and the 2000 convention for the things under 5,000. The reason that's 25,000 and it says projects under 5,000, we are not allowed to, it should be really 10,000. It's things we are not allowed to capitalize, like what Brant was talking about. You can't capitalize things unless if they're $10,000 now. And so anything that Nelson comes to me and says, I'm going to buy this big thing, but it's $9,000, it's in there. So it's not one thing, it's lots of stuff.
Okay.
Lots of
That
things
makes-
he wants
that
to
makes
buy,
more
he
sense.
gets
So-
whatever.
We're used to just going across the lines and.
I know, but
That was
that
good
messes
for me.
things up for going across the lines.
Right.
But it makes it easier for
That's
me.
why you're here.
So what's the 4,000 for the maintenance and vehicle?
I think it might be an error. It looks very error-like to me, and,
400.
you know, we
It says
did,
maintenance of equipment and vehicles. I didn't, you know, is there?
We have new vehicles, so it really shouldn't be much more than.
yeah, I mean, I can look back at the sheet that Nelson got me and find out for sure whether he screwed it up or I did, but it looks to me to be wrong. And that's what we need to know, is if it's right or not,
Well,
probably.
You might look at what equipment.
Unless if he,
It's not, I wouldn't take that as straight.
but see, Nelson, he has backup for what he gave me, so if it says it on there, he likely has something to back up why we raised it so much in 1 year.
It's pretty easy to tap an extra zero when you're going through.
Yeah.
It could have been my input, because I did, most of these I input myself, because our dashboard is acting real silly,
Okay.
so.
Cool.
That too.
Thank you.
Very good.
Okay, any questions?
Nope.
So I have a quick question,
Sure.
Nelson. You know, Doug was talking about when he gets into this hiring new product and he's doing all this new technological stuff, he learns some lingo. What's the latest lingo?
He's like, I'm going.
We had like Raspberry Pis a few years ago, and
Oh,
then,
well, no, we're still using those. The Raspberry Pi 4 came out, so.
is there anything else though? Like anything on the horizon, anything new? Anything in the Internet of Things that you can, you know?
No, not really. I mean, we're probably next year going to look at going into a cloud PBX. If the last
There you go.
week or two has taught us anything, it's that the people who maintain our phone lines don't care. I'm not going to name names, but they don't care. They just don't. They don't
Does
care.
Allo do phones?
Oh, huh?
Does Allo do phones?
Yes.
I don't know. They might.
Yes, they do.
They might have cloud-hosted PBXs. I don't know if they'd be able to handle the volume of traffic that we generate, but I mean, that's definitely something that we'll look at doing when we go out for bid.
Is that something we might do in 2020?
Yeah, definitely. It'll be 2020. So, and that's, you know, we'll be buying hardware and equipment.
Yeah, it's been a rough few days for Nelson with phones.
Actually, rough couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the company that manages the phone, that provides the phone line service is apathetic.
Nelson's needed that throw phone that the police got just
Yeah.
for, you know, like those stress balls. He needs the throw phone.
Didn't you?
Yeah, so, I mean, that's, you know, it's embarrassing when your users look to you to solve a problem and it's outside of your control and you can't fix it. You know, it's embarrassing. I feel, you know, shame, I guess, when I have to look at someone and go, I'm sorry, it's out of my control. So.
Well, you do a great job, Nelson.
Oh,
Not
thank
your
you.
fault, man. Not your fault.
I know, but it's still, you try to provide the highest level of service possible, and even when something's out of your control, you can't help but feel a little bit guilty, so.
You can always go back in your
Okay.
closet and then.
Yeah.
Mosey.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Nelson.
deal with 'em.
Mosey.
Who did you put the camera on while you were up there? Who did you put the camera on while you were up there?
He's like a good boy here.
I switched it over to something more entertaining than me.
The YouTube.
And so now, last but not least, we have Tony Behrens with the Gas Department.
Are you Mosey?
It's kind of
He's hustling.
Yeah, that's not a Mosey.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me. I think you have my budget in front of you. Made 2 changes. I increased my maintenance system just because things are going up. And I increased my fuel and oil because we've got that boring machine now, so we got an extra piece of equipment that we need to keep fueled. And I have requested, the numbers aren't in there, but I am going to be losing one of my experienced employees next year. And I recommended to add a little extra into the salaries to have a new hire start 1st of January, so I can be working with him, so I can make the transition a little easier with losing my experience. Want to get the internally person that is interested in moving up to in the world, get him working with the experienced one that I'm going to be losing, and make the transition a little easier. And I'm looking at, I haven't got any numbers back yet, but part of the master plan for the gas department was upgrading our system, a part of our system. So I'm looking into getting some numbers on a surveying company that can help us do our uprating on part of our system for the portion of our master plan of the gas department. So, any questions?
How long does that take when you bring a fresh new face in, we'll call it? How long does that take to get somebody up to speed in your department?
A year is a good, it all depends on the person too. Some folks are a little quicker learners.
Guy to fill the experienced person's boots.
The experienced, I've got another experienced, just not as experienced, that's going to be willing to step up, I believe. And he's kind of been working, I've had them two been working together the last couple of years because I've kind of foreseen this coming and kind of had the heads up. So, we've kind of been working already in cross-training and getting the information out and stuff, so.
Those are really good questions, because I think that we sometimes forget that when you hire somebody, they're just not ready to work, and especially in Tony's department where they have DOT regulations and other regulations. They have to educate the person on that. They have to walk them through it. There's a lot of training that goes into what his guys do and in the utilities departments. And so when we think about succession planning, Tony's the one that has really taken that very serious and has been helping us with that model of what do we do with these people that have been here for a long time and have a lot of experience, and how do we transition and transfer that knowledge, as we discussed in our retreat. And so Tony's done a really good job with making sure in his department he's transferring that knowledge from one generation to another. So good job.
Thank you. Anything else?
Looks good, thanks.
Right, thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
And that concludes our presentations tonight. We really appreciate everybody who's participated and the work that's gone into putting this together. After 5 departments finding one potential error, I think we've done a really good job. So
Amazing.
keep up the good work, guys.
That's why we have preliminaries before the.
That's
final.
right. That's right. That's why we go through these.
Correct.
This is practice.
Next item on the agenda is public comment, audience participation for items not on the agenda.
Nobody appears to want to participate.
Are you coming up, Chris?
You want to participate?
Reports by officials and staff.
Thank you, Your Honor. I know we have a few people that have a few announcements, but I just wanted to talk about a few things that are going on. We've got a lot of water projects going on in the city. You've seen a lot of torn up streets. I think we're getting ready to complete those here in the next week. We've got the pavers will be back probably next month to fill in some of those holes and get things back to normal. I know you probably get a lot of complaints, especially when it rains and gets muddy and we get some ruts. We've had some people go out, our streets department has been tried to stay on top of that as much as they can. If you hear of any complaints, let us know. We'll get out there as quick as we can to get them fixed. One other thing that has come up as it relates to those projects, I want to make very clear to the public, is there's been some comments and concerns that maybe we're not using strictly for streets just for streets, and that maybe we're replacing water lines with streets money. And I want to assure the public and the council that that is not the case. So if you get complaints about it, that is not happening. You'll recall just last meeting we had a presentation by our auditor. Our auditor goes through and verifies where things are spent, where the money is put, taken from, and spent. And one of the things that they're required to do is make sure that we are following all of the laws associated with each of the funds. It would be illegal for us to spend money the council did not appropriate for us to spend in a specific way and out of a specific fund. If we do that or have done that, the auditor will flag that and we will not get a clean audit. It will be a notice in the audit that we took money out of one fund to spend in another, and we are very careful about how we do that. So if you hear of anything, see of anything, or hear any complaints, remind people we got a clean audit last year because we're spending it the way that we were supposed to, and we continue to do the same today.
On the same note, we cannot utilize sales tax money to do enterprise fund projects.
That's right. That's right. We can't. Right. It would, and that would have to be a specific authorization that's limited by Tabor, and it's a pain. So we just don't do it. So you're right, Mayor. There are specific rules on how we spend money, and so I think sometimes people get some ideas in their head because they don't fully understand the intricacies of the budget and what we are allowed and not allowed to do legally. And then they say things that aren't true.
I've addressed one of those.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you.
And those people can feel free to call.
Yes.
And we'll be more than happy to explain how that works.
Yes, very transparent in what we do and how we do it. So just want to make sure that that's clear to anybody that's got some concerns about how we're spending the money. One other thing, we had 2 executive sessions tonight, and since this is not in the public hearing comments, I can make it. The council executive session tonight on economic incentives is going to be moved or postponed until next meeting. We're going to discuss some economic incentives on the property over in Center Point for multifamily housing. Very happy to say that we're working very hard with multiple developers that are interested in getting over on that property. We have some plans and some ideas that they want to promote to council. So next meeting is going to be long as far as it relates to executive session, so we're going to try and keep it short on the front end because we've got a lot of work to do in figuring out how we're going to negotiate and with whom we're going to negotiate these economic incentives. But want to thank our team. You know, when people come in and want to do something, we have to ask questions immediately. Can we do this? Steve, what if we put this in? Brent, what happens if we do this? And Sarah is fielding most of these questions, and our wonderful staff is working well with her to make sure that we're responding to these people. When they come in and they say, yeah, how long will it take you to get me that information? Sarah says, I'll get it to you tonight. They are impressed. And the only reason she can do that is because she has the support of everybody else on the team to be promoting this economic development. So kudos to our team. I think they're all rock stars. And one last thing, this last week we were up at Mountain Connect and presented to a standing room only presentation on what we did in Fort Morgan, what's going on in Breckenridge, and how ALLO is working with various communities to provide not just broadband, but fiber to the home and fiber to the premise service, which is world-class service. You can't get any better anywhere else in the world than what we can provide with the infrastructure that we put into place. Again, that was a really good rock star ballad by our team. I want to thank all of them again. Alibration was a great thing as well. So I know there are some other people with some comments, and things, and then we can take questions from council. Chief.
We're happy to announce that tomorrow we have Coffee with a Cop at McDonald's, 8:30 a.m. We invite the community to join us there. They will meet their friendly neighborhood police officer.
Brent, did you have anything else, or anybody? Oh. All right, so have you received any questions or concerns or anything that we can address for you tonight?
People are excited to see curb and gutter in Center Point.
Yes, curb and gutter in Center Point. You cannot go beyond the road-blocked barriers, but you can drive up and look. The other thing is there is a big hole in the ground over at the soon-to-be Gene Doty Senior Center, and they'll be putting in forms and filling up and building a nice senior center over there. So many wonderful things happening in the city of Fort Morgan.
And I had the opportunity, while I was waiting at a undisclosed business for a long period of time the other day, to speak with Gene, who was also waiting, and he is very excited about, the concrete getting ready to be put in the ground, so he's super excited. He's getting all kinds of kudos from the other people that were also waiting at this business for what he's doing with the senior center, so it was kind of nice.
That's all very exciting.
Okay. I did have a couple of people make some comments about, first off, kudos on the BMX park. That thing is rock solid. Kids are going up and down the street all the time, so it does get used quite a bit, which is a good thing. That's a great job to the parks guys and to you. But I did have a couple of things that were brought up, and I think Larry French was here earlier to talk about it, and it was the outhouses that are there, the accessibility of them. I haven't looked at them or that, and not having water for the kids. They've been going to the houses across the street and turning on their hose and getting water and that, so I know a couple of them have put locks on their outside spigots because they've left the water running and that, so I don't know where you would be on that, but I thought I'd bring it up, and then they talked about parking. I don't know what our long-term aspects for parking there are.
To answer a couple of the questions, the outhouses were there mainly for the construction crew.
Okay.
We could leave them there for the summer if we wanted to. We ended up doing that at Optimus Park this year too, with the pickleball courts and tennis courts. I've been talking with Steve about parking. I think to start to address, I have mixed emotions because you have parking problems whether the bike park and the skateboard park are there or not. If someone rents the gazebo for an Easter egg hunt or whatever event, you're going to have parking problems. I don't really foresee 30 automobiles being there because of the bike park or skateboard park. There might be 3 or 4. However, we do have the little park on west on the other side of the bridge across the ditch. And I think we'll put signage there kind of stating that that's Brenda Joy Bike Park entrance. That's kind of where the trail starts anyways. I've created some signage, haven't ordered them yet, but I'll put those up to begin with. And then I've been talking with Steve about other parking options, and we do have kind of an idea, extremely rough idea, for parking on the other side, which I think at that time, if we do talk about building a parking lot, we'll be able to address the water and the bathroom situation. I think that's a conversation we'll have when we talk about capital and conservation trust, but I think we want to address the bathroom scenario at Optimus Park as well as at Brenda Joy now that they've become more than just neighborhood parks. There's facilities there that people are using, so I kind of think we need to come up with a solution. I think we could probably do one next year and one the following year at a conservation trust probably. So the bike park's really cool. There's still work to be done. I've took my bikes over several days when I was working with the guys, and we've had a blast, but planning on a kind of a grand opening celebration, which I'm looking at July 27th, which is a Saturday morning, so everybody's invited to that. I haven't advertised it yet. I'll work with Danny on a flyer and some other things. Contacted a bike shop in Boulder that's right next to the Valmont Bike Park. I'm hoping they might be able to come down and do a demo day, or at least get us some contacts of professional riders that could come down and really kind of show us what the capabilities are for that park. So it's really cool. It's pretty neat.
I'll nominate Dave to give it a shot.
Yeah.
We did.
I go in a straight line.
He's a bicycler.
We still have some dirt work to do. Some of the features have additional dirt work to do. Jerry and I were walking it today and discussed how we want to add a walking trail. So eventually, I think there'll be a walking path around the entire outside of the park over to the bridge that would cross to west, and then also cutting through back to the green belt section of the park. So we have ideas there, but that'll probably come in the next month or two when we start getting road base and some things to use for that. So
I also got a couple phone calls about the trash, and I know with kids you're going to get trash, but anyway, just so you know, I think it comes mostly on Saturdays and Sundays. I know the guys are over there cleaning it up, but
yeah, there's trash. We have parks guys that rotate the parks on the weekends and are supposed to address the trash issue. The signs that I'm making are gonna remind people to clean up after themselves, but as well as wear their safety gear and other things. But,
Your mother doesn't.
One other thing. Can you tie those tables down? They're very ingenious and are leaning them up against the gazebo and making slides. And
Launching point?
you didn't see the day in City Park when they lined like 20 of them from the band shell all the way to the street?
Oh, yeah. I did.
That's
That
a
was
safety
one of
issue.
the things. When I got down there, they had them propped up on the gazebo. So
Yeah, we could chain them to the posts of the gazebo. I mean, you could do that.
my rings on a chain to keep it at least being propped up. I mean,
But we need to find
that probably wouldn't be that hard.
No.
I don't know what we do in City Park because, people want to move those tables in City Park to the shaded areas, and then we're also moving some onto the street for Thursday Night Live. And we have 20 there during the summer, not during the winter, so I'm not sure what you would do at City Park. They're still going to probably manipulate those, but, and then my other idea that I probably have, John helped me with this idea. I want to create a map. I don't know how to describe it, but when you visit a tourist town and you get the pamphlet and it shows you all the attractions and it's kind of cartoony or artistic, hoping to kind of create a map of our parks throughout the community that we can post at every park, and it'll include what amenities are available at that park. It may include historical sites throughout the town, but also what's a safe biking and walking route from, say, Brenda Joy to City Park and then to Riverside. So I've worked with Pat, the GSI guy, a little bit, GIS guy, a little bit to get an idea started on that. But I don't know how that'll go, but I think it'll be really cool if I can figure it out. So.
We just need to harness that ingenuity that they're with the tables and put it to a positive use.
Right.
let me know how that works for you.
Maybe we can come up with a project for them. Maybe they could design the flyer.
Yeah, that was positive.
Yep. Thanks.
Thanks, Ty.
Any other questions from council or concerns that we can address?
I just gave you my list.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Word 2 is silent.
And Ward 3's already sent stuff.
All right, that's all we got. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bids, meetings, and announcements, Mr. Brennan.
Thank you, Your Honor. There's only one bid out right now, accepting sealed bids for repair mastic until 3 p.m. on July 15th. On the calendar, city offices will be closed on Thursday, July 4th for Independence Day. The Senior Center Board will meet on July 9th at 1:30 p.m. at the Senior Center. The Airport Advisory Board will meet on July 10th at noon at the airport. The Library Advisory Board will meet July 15th at 4:30 p.m. in the Museum Community Room, and the next City Council regular meeting will be July 16th at 6 p.m. here at City Hall.
Well done.
Next item on our agenda is an executive session for discussion of a personnel matter under CRS Section 24-64024F and not involving any specific employees who have requested discussion on a matter in open session, any member of this body or any elected official, the appointment of any official, of any person to fill an office of this body or of an elected official, or personnel policies that do not require the discussion of the matters personal to the particular employee. And provided for identification is check-in with Chief of Public Safety. I would entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Your Honor, I offer a motion to go into executive session.
Second. Is that you? I have a motion by Lisa Northrup and a second by Kevin Lindell. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, same sign. We will adjourn to executive session for a period of time.